Provo, Utah. This is the ultimate Final Fantasy podcast with your hosts, Joseph DeGolier and Caleb Schweiss. This is Ultima Final Fantasy.
Welcome to another episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the ultimate Final Fantasy podcast. I am your host, Caleb.
And I'm your other host, Joe.
And we're going to continue Final Fantasy XIV's 2.0 storyline review. Last time we
did the
about,
storyline already.
Well, I guess.
Review.
Review, just review, sorry.
Yeah.
Last time we did talk about the story, and you bet your sweet ass we talked about gameplay. This week, we're going to talk about everything else that matters in the game: design, music, legacy, the overall. This is the end, guys. This is...
No, it's not, because we're going to have a part 3, most likely.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, fuck. Well, it's almost the end, guys.
Well, this is the wrap up.
Yeah, the wrap up of season 1, if you want to call it that, of the main series Final Fantasy games from our eyes. It's a big thing. Oh, it's crazy.
Deal. Yeah. So it's going to be like 11, though, where we're going to have more people on next week.
Yeah, we'll have more people on for the end of 2.0 kind of a deal. So, yeah.
Be ready for that.
Oh, yes.
But the place to find all that stuff, where do they go, Schwartz?
Well, there are many places to go. One of them is youtube.com/Ultima Final Fantasy. You can follow me on Twitter at UFF Podcast and Joe
at Joseph DeGolier, DeGolyer.
Yeah, good luck with that. Facebook.com/Ultima Final Fantasy. You can support us on Patreon. Just go on there and search Ultima Final Fantasy. We really appreciate it. You guys get the episodes super early sometimes if you guys give us a donation. Like when we do multi-part ones, we throw them all on there at the same time. It's good. If you got, if you prefer to listen to us on Sunday instead of Monday, then you can.
Okay.
And there's a lot of cool stuff. Any sort of other podcasts that we're working on, any insider scoops that we have, you guys will get first access to that well before we release it on iTunes. And you can follow me, my gameplay of the series, of whatever I happen to be playing at twitch.tv/Ultima Final Fantasy. You can also catch our episodes live most of the time. With these ones, though, we haven't been because of the complications of having all this shit running on one thing with the TeamSpeak and the breaks we're taking. It would just be a big mess, but you can catch those most of the time, and all of this and so much more at ultimafinalfantasy.com.
One last thing before we get back into this episode: Godzilla Podcast. Go to GodzillaPodcast.com or find the Godzilla Podcast on iTunes.
Yeah. And check out Super Sexy Swinging Fanfiction. I know a lot of you guys,
don't check out the recent episode.
Please don't. But other than that one, it's a lot of fun.
What is that one called? Because we're going to have a couple before this one comes out.
Oh, crap, I don't remember. It's the Pokemon one, though.
Don't fucking listen to the Pokemon one. It's awful.
It's disgusting. But we don't proofread it. We just read fan fiction that should be bad, we think is going to be bad, and it's a lot of fun. It's not, we don't support the fan fiction necessarily, but it's fun readings.
And let's get to design.
Let's get into that.
Okay, let's talk about the design of the game and the look of the game, the look of the characters, and all that other stuff.
All that jazz.
Yeah, we got with us Bill Mardigan and Emily Mentos, who were with us on our last episode, of course. Bill, what did you think of the design of the game? Just right off the bat.
I liked it. I thought the world was really well evened out. But I liked all the desert land, and then the coastland, and the forest land, and they had the snowy one later. I really like it. Looks nice. Bright colors. I like bright colors.
What'd you think about the character designs, like the cat people and all that other stuff?
I was fresh off playing FF9 when I started playing this, so I did pick the cat person.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I changed it now. I use one of those Fantasia potions. I'm the Aura, the dragon people. I think they're pretty boss.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they seemed. I know I've looked at the the races for FF11, and they seem to be pretty much the same, aren't they?
They're pretty similar.
They're pretty similar. I mean, they don't call them the same thing, but they totally are the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Emily, what did you think of the look of the game?
Overall, I like the look of the game. I was a cat person, and I really enjoy cats, so I think that's why I chose the cat person. But overall, the game looked really nice. Mm-hmm. My favorite area was probably, I think Kurthus, I think is how you say it, the snowy place.
Right.
Yeah.
Kurthus Highlands.
The characters also just looked really nice, too. And maybe I have a pretty high graphics card, so it just runs really well and works really well on my computer. But I think overall it looked really nice on anyone's gameplay that I've seen.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Schweiss?
I don't think it looked as good as 13, at least on my PS4. I know the PC version looks better. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that might be part of it. But even then, I don't think the PC version looked better than 13 when I played it on PC.
You know what? I agree with you. I don't think it looks as solid as 13. Now, I'm not sure what the technical aspects are, but as far as like how the game looks as a whole, I don't think it does look as good. I don't think the animations during cutscenes, I think they're very simplified and kind of sometimes even jarring, like the character movements.
Yeah, they're not fluid.
It reminds me of the character movements of like Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
It kind of has the pre-walk cycle and stuff built in, and then there's suddenly a character would stop. And they would just go still. And you didn't have any of that with 13. If there was something that 13 did extremely well, it was the look of the game, especially when it had to do with animation. However, design-wise, outside of graphics, what do you think of that?
I didn't realize I sounded so much like you there. That was interesting.
Oh.
Yeah. How does it look, Caleb? Here's how I think it looks. Fucking asshole.
It's what I do. I'm sorry.
I know.
You have an opportunity now to...
Well, thank you. I'm glad. I'm honored that I have this chance to talk about how I think it looks. I agree, though. I think the areas look a little bit toned down. I mean, they're a lot more interactive than 13, though. There's a lot more areas to go to. It's not just a fucking hallway like with 13, so it is a very different game. And it's a lot more open world, so they kind of have to, tone down a little bit on how good everything looks because you have to be able to interact with so much more. The characters, I think they look pretty solid. I mean, there's a lot of similar looking characters, but it's not quite in the same realm as like 11 or 12.
Every single character in 11 looked like there were like 8 types of characters.
Yeah, that's pretty
much how it was. And within that, besides Lion, of course, everybody looked exactly the same.
Yeah, and with 14, I think they definitely changed that up a bit. There was a lot more variety with it. I like the spell animations, the build up while I'm channeling for the spell. That looks really cool. I don't know. I think it looks good, but I don't think it looks super good. But I mean, it doesn't really matter to me, obviously, because we played Final Fantasy 1 and the colors. It's a really colorful game. I like that aspect of it. There's a lot of different areas. There's a lot of different terrain. And I think overall it looks pretty solid. It's a step down graphically from 13, but it's a step up from 12. So
it's even a step down graphically from itself, by the way.
Yeah, from 1.0. 1.0 looks a little better in some ways than 2.0.
Well, technically, it had way more like pixels and stuff in its thing.
Well, so did 10 versus 12, but 12 looks better.
That's true. That's true.
The facial thing, so it depends, but. This one isn't an anomaly. 1.0 looks better than 2.0, but I don't know. It's all about the technical aspect of it. I mean, they wanted more people to play it, so they made it playable for PC. dumbed it down a little bit and made a better game.
Yeah. So what I like about the game is that they went away, and I think this is partially because they were making an MMO, and I guess you can't really make a JRPG looking MMO. They went towards the western end of the scale when it went to the design.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean there? So it's a lot more old castle-y type feel and a lot more nature-esque, and it with few exceptions, removes the steampunk nature that we've come to know from the later half of the series, and most of the anime aspects, besides the weird cat people, and other. As much as Emily loves them, besides the weird cat people and maybe the Papalimo type guys. What are those? Lalafels.
Yeah.
Fuck Lalafels, by the way. Besides those, it does steer clear away from that, and that is something that I thought was refreshing.
Yeah.
But yeah, graphically it doesn't look quite as good, but I gotta tell you, the design of some of the dungeons and of course the boss matches, the primals in this game, those look amazing, and they're all very unique and remind me of 13. You know how 13 kind of had each area was its own thing?
Yeah.
They have that for 14, just for dungeons and primals and stuff like that. And despite them going to the western side, they didn't have any of the blandness of 11. Definitely, that's all.
True.
That's all out the window. So as far as like how good it looks, it doesn't look as good as 13. I think it does look better than 12 in many aspects, but it is far past 11.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice that when they do move away from the super anime stuff, like with 13 especially, it has a shitload of that stuff, and it just bugs me after a while. Like it's super zany costumes and that kind of shit. It wears me down, and I feel like this game didn't really do that very much. Of course, you have some semi ridiculous looking characters, but it's pretty believable, and it doesn't like take you out of the moment kind of a thing.
So in general, art toned down a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, from some previous aspects.
I'd say so, yeah.
There's no Nomura involved, and I think that is mostly what it has to do with.
Yeah. That's true. Nomura wasn't really in 12 either, was he?
No, not really, I don't think.
Yeah, that's
there
interesting.
You go. Look at that.
We like the way it looks without him.
Yeah. Some people would very much disagree with both of our opinions, by the way.
Well, that's fine. Those are people that can't draw round faces and have to draw, square ones instead.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that some of the designs are, I don't know, the anime, it's simple drawings. So like instead of having a round, like actual person looking face, it'll be like a square with the triangle on the bottom kind of thing. It's just, Nomura does that a lot where it's not quite as, I don't know, realistic. It's just the anime style. I don't know. It bugs me.
It bugs me too. But we are talking to people who are usually really into anime and stuff like that.
No, and that's fine, and they can do it well. Like if you look at
fucking cat people and the Lalafels. Come on.
Well, it's a fantasy universe. I mean,
at least there's no Lalafels in 13. Let's be clear. There's no Lalafels in 13 or in 10.
Yeah, but there is a bird living in the dude's hair. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous, right?
Okay, all right. You're right. Did anybody else feel really creeped out with the Lalafels? Like, I just felt weird.
Yeah.
There's a weird feeling inside of me whenever there was a Lalafell.
Like the one that's running the joint over in Ul'dah. Like the leader over there is that tiny little Lalafell chick. It's kind of odd. It's kind of jarring.
Nanomo?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they definitely, you gotta wonder sometimes, their inclusion. Like,
why?
They're adults, but they look like children.
Mm-hmm.
That's just weird.
It's so weird.
Yeah, it's strange.
Emily, do you have a contrasting or a...
I like seeing a tank. Well,
a tank Lalafell is
seeing
funny,
a tank being a Lalafell. It's really hilarious because it's like they're supposed to be so buff and so strong, but it's just like this tiny person.
Yeah, this like kind of chubby little dude.
I'll agree with that. That's entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly she doesn't mind the cat people, but I don't know. It's not too zany. I mean,
I think it's pretty zany.
It's crazier in other games, like in the Skyrim and stuff like that. They're way more cat-like.
Are they?
Yeah, they've got like completely covered in fur kind of a thing.
Okay.
So it could be more weird, but whatever.
I don't know. I thought the design, I liked it for the most part, and I liked the direction that they went.
It's just a touch of weird.
With the touch of weird,
yeah.
I like that. But yeah, overall, pretty good. It's weird to see them step down on the graphic end.
Yeah, that's a rarity.
But of course, they did that for 11 also. So maybe just MMOs, since you have to have so much stuff on the screen that you can't necessarily control as well as far as processing power is concerned. And I know they had problems with it in their development because they were focusing so much on graphics in the original 1.0 version.
Right.
With all that in mind, I think they did a pretty darn good job, and I'd be surprised, with the exception of maybe Elder Scrolls Online, if there is a better looking MMO out there.
I will say too, I think a lot of their issues came from trying to keep it playable on PS3, because I know sometimes you would walk into an area and you'd follow your map, and you'd be like, "Oh, I can see right where I'm standing. This guy has a quest." And he hasn't loaded yet. The platform he's standing on hasn't loaded yet. And you're just like, you stand there waiting for it to render. And it's just it got really painful sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see that being a reason to dumb it down so that the cross-platform thing is still an available feature of the game. That's kind of a big thing for him.
All right, well, you guys want to talk about some music?
Yeah, let's get into that.
All right.
Alright, so let's get into the music of Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn. I don't know, I really like the music of it. It's kind of... I feel like there's a lot more areas in this game that had music as opposed to 11. Like, there was a lot...
Yeah, there's less...
Yeah, less dead zones.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And I feel like Masayoshi Soken, the composer for this game, I think he did a really good job on it. I mean, I know there's still a few tracks that are left over from 1.0, like we mentioned earlier. The Garuda track is a leftover. I think the intro one.
The intro.
The intro track is a leftover from the great Nobou.
And the theme song.
And that's right, the theme song was his as well.
The theme song is also from Nobou.
It's great, and so I think those are really good. And then I feel like this guy did a really good job with it. There's a lot of good pieces. He's
close enough to Nobuo that even though we're playing his stuff through his areas, and it kind of has that Final Fantasy feel, by the way, and it's not as in your face as some other Nobuo soundtracks would probably be.
Yeah, it's atmospheric.
It's a little bit more on the atmospheric end. Either way, when we go into the Garuda fight, it's not suddenly... I mean, in a way, it is suddenly different because it's a cool soundtrack, right? It's a really cool piece. It doesn't feel out of place from the world. And so I think he did a very good job, this Soken guy. He did
filling the shoes.
A very good job of filling the shoes of a guy who obviously could not work on the 2.0 version of the game.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like it's... like you said, it's not as in your face as a lot of the Nobou stuff. Even though I love Nobou Uematsu's music, sometimes it takes you out of the moment a little bit because of how intense the music is. In this game, that rarely happens.
And I gotta say that the music is atmospheric enough, even though we listen to certain tracks over and over again in Final Fantasy XIV 2.0, it's not annoying to listen to it. And when we were watching those cutscenes for 1.0, there was a piece of music that kept playing when you were in town that was annoying. And so Nobuo has the ability to annoy you with a theme. I know some people would disagree with me on that very thoroughly, but I'm thinking of Balam Garden as one example of a theme that I cannot stand to listen to ever again. Boom, 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 whatever that is, the world theme for FF8. But I think this guy, the Soken guy, the way that the music fades in and out that works. And then his musical pieces, they're exciting when they need to be, and they sound like Final Fantasy. It's not as atmospheric as 12 stuff, and yet it has its own melodic qualities, of course, that conflict with that. I would say, and I think it's a very solid musical score. Of course, I thought 13's was solid too, and a lot of people disagree with me on that.
Yeah, I think it's got shitty songs on it, but yeah.
Emily, what did you think of the score?
I really, really, really liked the score. I think there was a good enough variety in between different towns. You had like different kind of like feels depending on which town you were in. Same with like the fights and the dungeons. They each had their own like soundtrack kind of to backdrop what was going on. So I think they did a really good job putting everything together.
All right. What about you, Bill?
Yeah, I love this soundtrack. I'm almost tempted to say there's a lot here, but I'm tempted to say it's my favorite Final Fantasy soundtrack.
Oh, them's fighting words right there.
There's so much diversity in it. Like there's the Titan song that just sounds like punk rock, and then you go into the library dungeon, and it's like jazz. Like it's like, and then there's like amazing orchestral pieces all over the place. And I thought they did a really good like tie-in. Like each mount generally has a different theme, and if you're on like the FF, or if you're on the Magitech armor, you get Terra's theme playing. And yeah, I don't know, I thought it was really good. I have a couple of the soundtracks on my phone, and I listen to them from time to time.
Wow, interesting.
The soundtrack was, of course, very, very popular, especially 2.0's soundtrack, actually, that there's like tons of remixes of his stuff out there. And I'm surprised. When we were doing the FF14 1.0 episode, and of course we put little remixes in between when we, move on to different sections of our podcast. We were looking for a 1.0 remix, and there were none.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is kind of a lost soundtrack of Nobuo's, but this other guy, this Soken guy, his stuff is messed with all over the place by fans, and so you can see the power of his soundtrack with people like you, Bill, people who think that it's just an incredible soundtrack. And I think it's a good soundtrack. I don't think it's like one of the greats within the Final Fantasy games, although there is a lot of hope for this Soken guy. I would like to see what he does in the future, definitely.
I think a lot of it too is there's just the amount of pieces in this game, because each dungeon does have a different theme. Like, you could take the top 30 of them, and make one amazing soundtrack. Mm-hmm. But there's probably, I don't know how many people, but it's got to be a lot.
Yeah, he's working overtime, that's for sure. He had a really cool presentation on the FF14 Fan Fest.
Yeah, you can,
where he took the Leviathan theme that he had, and he showed us all the different versions that he had and how he'd mess with it on his little programs on his laptop, and that was really impressive stuff.
Yeah, I was really impressed with that guy when we saw him at the Fan Fest. So
what did you think of the music, Schweiss?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it was similar to 12's in the atmospheric style, in the it all felt right. And then the pieces in the big nations in Ul'dah and Gridania and in Limsa Lominsa, they were all really good. Mm-hmm. They were all really entertaining. They all felt right. Like when I go to Limsa Lominsa, it feels like I should be in like a seaport kind of place. Just the sound of it is like a grand. It just sounds right for some reason. The same goes for the other two, for their nations, their respective nations. And I don't know, I really enjoy it. I think there's a lot of good stuff here, and I'm kind of with you in it's really good, but I don't know if it's like top tier for the series, but it's definitely up there. I mean, there wasn't a single song on here that was just really annoying or anything like that, which we normally run into in the rest of the series, where there's at least one song that just drives us fucking nuts. And I didn't feel like there was one at all this time.
Yeah.
The only piece that was kind of annoying occasionally was the little like unnerving soundtrack, the little when something fishy would be happening. That one was kind of but it didn't happen all the time, except for when we watched 1.0's storyline. It was like every fucking cutscene, and that shit would come on, and it got kind of old, but it's the unnerving track. But yeah, I don't know. I felt like it was pretty solid, and there's a lot of room for remix, and I think a lot of people are really big fans of it.
Yeah, so by the way, this Soken guy, he's worked on many other video games before, but I think this is his first time that he's pretty much scored a game by himself. It seems like he worked as a sound designer, and he worked with other composers on a few different games, like Front Mission 5, Drakengard 2, and Dawn of Mana. But this is his big game, it looks like.
Yeah, no, this is the biggest one. He's been the key to.
Yeah, I'm most interested to see what he does in the future, because I mean, we don't think about whoever composed the music for FF12 quite the same way.
No, yeah.
So this guy, I don't know, he could be another Uematsu given a few more years.
Yeah, who's to say? I mean,
and a few more opportunities to score other games, of course.
Yeah.
Now he might just be stuck with 14 for the next 8 years. Who knows?
Yeah, it depends on how long it's coming out with new content, really.
So we can all agree that the music for FF14 is good. Some people say exceptionally good. We agree?
We agree.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the legacy of the game, shall we?
Yeah, let's get into that.
So the legacy of the game, Final Fantasy XIV, of course, having its torrid development through the original 1.0 release of the game, which, of course, was a total disaster, making the company basically... they had to apologize and try to build up a fan base again. And... I mean, what do you think Final Fantasy XIV 2.0? I mean, what is its legacy now? Bill, go ahead.
Its legacy? I think it's still creating its own legacy. I really like the patches every few months. I'm new to MMOs, so that just seems kind of like... That seems really cool to me. Like, they can constantly build and add on to what they've been building up. I don't know, legacy for me, it's I remember it fondly, I think, as far as like stacking it against other Final Fantasies. I've had a lot of fun playing this one, and I've played it now for 5-6 months, so that's the longest I've played any Final Fantasy game.
So Emily, what do you think the legacy of the game is? What do you see it as?
I also see it pretty fondly, being one of the first MMOs I've played, like, actually a lot. I think it works really well as an MMO. I think other Final Fantasy players might not see it as fondly unless they actually play it, because they're turned off by the MMO for whatever reason. I know other people I know just like are like, oh, I won't play it because of it's an MMO and I don't want to play an MMO. So I guess that kind of has a negative divide of Final Fantasy players who just want to play Final Fantasy and people who just don't like MMOs, I guess.
All right.
I was that way. I was hesitant to get into an MMO. Glad I did, but
yeah,
for whatever reason, I just always never wanted to get involved.
I think we're all in the same boat as far as that is concerned. Playing through the main series games, I mean, people didn't want us to play. They wanted us to skip 11 and 14, or at least skip 11.
I wanted to skip 11.
And
like
to me, it was
business.
like, well, we can't skip 11 and then play 14. That's unfair, so we must do both. And I'm glad that we did. Honestly.
I'm glad too. Now I don't have to play it.
Yeah.
Everything about it.
There you go. And we have to return for expansions on 11 later.
I'm dreading that.
Yep. 2016, here we come.
Yep, I'm ready
Those
to.
episodes are going to be a hurdle.
Thanks. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks.
Sorry, guys.
Schweiss, legacy of the game, in your opinion, looking around at MMO players, 14 players and non-14 players, what do you think it looks like?
I think the legacy is greatly improved, especially compared to 1.0. There's a lot of people at that 14 fan festival who only played 14. That's the only Final Fantasy they would touch. They wouldn't even think about playing the other ones. They love MMOs, and this is
basically people who went from WoW to 14.
Yeah, people who got done with WoW. They're like, okay, I've done everything. Let's try some Final Fantasy XIV, and there's a lot of that. I think the game has a pretty positive fan base and a fairly solid spot in MMOs right now. It's a biggie. I mean, I know there's bigger MMOs out there, but they don't have quite the same backstory as 14, where the first chunk of the game came out and it was this big fucking disappointment. Everybody hated it. It was 11 all over again. It was just an unmitigated disaster. And then to come back for a Realm Reborn and create this pretty enjoyable experience that pulls people that are not only fans of the Final Fantasy franchise, but MMO players, all together into one group. I think it's kind of amazing that it was able to do that and do it well. I mean, they're making a lot of money on this game right now. So
It's almost as if they used a Phoenix Down on it.
Almost
like that. Yeah.
I would agree with you on all of that. I think that 14 1.0, I think it might actually take them a while to recover from 1.0 still.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if they are fully recovered. So, we'll see how much money a Realm Reborn makes in the future. I'm sure at some point, 8 years down the road, they'll be like, it was our most successful game ever.
Yeah.
Like they did with 11. But we'll see. We'll see about that. I think that 14 1.0 was so important to Square Enix's history, which I'm sure we'll see about in a future episode.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Is that it was a game that failed so bad. Square Enix, of course, had to reassess their company and their standards for their games.
Their place in the MMO.
Yeah, they were so interested in like pushing graphics and getting their players to come play the game just based upon how it looks, that they completely just disregarded the gameplay aspects of 1.0. And I don't think there's really any other example that I can think of in which a company has failed so badly and then reassessed all of their products and then are, of course, we hope are in a comeback phase right now. They've at least come back with 2.0.
Right.
And they pushed 15's development. They pushed development of a whole bunch of games, apparently, because of the failure of 14. We had the original director. Eventually, he stepped down outside of the company. The company, the head guy, the executive, that was in charge, the CEO. That's the word I was looking for. He also stepped down because of the failures of 1.0. So it's a crazy time. Because of that. So I think the legacy should a Realm Reborn stay on its path of being a good solid game, and assuming that we have good games in the future, especially in the Final Fantasy series, I think it'll prove to be a great legacy. Now there is a chance that let's say 15 sucks and let's say 16 sucks. Then 14 1.0 will be seen as the ultimate downturn of the series.
The beginning of the end kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's
more so
happen,
than 11.
Yeah.
Would have been.
Well, I mean, 11
or 13. Some people look at 13 that way.
Yeah, I could see that. But 11 it's its own level of disappointment. But it didn't have the failed launch that 14 did. I mean, back then, 11 was
no. We're seeing it.
MMO.
We're seeing 11 as a failure in
now,
retrospect,
right?
Not as an initial thing.
We're seeing it as the piece of shit it actually is versus what the goodness that it was at the time.
Sure.
Now they came out with 14 1.0 and they did 11 again, and that's not okay anymore. So that's why it's kind of got that that huge amount of turbulence is like, yeah, this would have been cool, years ago, 5 years ago, but it's not cool now.
So I'm gonna have to agree. I'm gonna have to agree with Bill on this one. I think it is building its legacy.
Yeah, it's not quite there.
Although the nature of which, whether it will be a good legacy or a bad legacy. I mean, it could be, well, they tried to get back with 2.0, but that really didn't work because these games sucked. I mean, that's a possible turnout in the future. So we're still seeing the effects of 1.0, I think, right now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, just given how long 15 has taken. They're obviously taking their time with 15 because of the failure of 14. So...
Well, that and all their management changes they've been doing.
That's because
they've been taking their time on things since 12.
Yeah, in a way, but 12 also had internal problems, and I think 14 is actually a manifestation of those problems,
really?
More than anything else.
Yeah, actually, that does line up.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
There's too much bureaucracy in the company, obviously. And so now they're putting one guy in charge of each game. Well, at least it seems that way from what they're telling us. They got Yoshi P. He is in charge of 14. That is his thing. And it's not like a company-wide, work on graphics, work on this.
Yeah, and then we've got Kingdom Hearts 3 is being worked on by Nomura, and then we've got Hajime Tauta working on 15.
15. That's his thing, and he is getting the people that he wants to do that. Instead of a bureaucratic thing, which we heard with 13 and we heard with the development of 12, that there were split teams and that they had leadership problems. And I think they're trying. Timed out. I think they're trying to deal with that.
Yeah.
Who left us? Was that Emily?
Emily's gone.
Okay.
What were you saying, Bill?
Rest in peace, Emily, once again. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering. On a side note, who is doing 7? Do we know?
It's Nomura with Nojima.
Okay.
So, Nomura's directing. I don't know how he's doing Kingdom Hearts 3 at the same time, but that's...
with Nojima?
Kazushige Nojima.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works. And then I think... what's his name is involved with it, too. The original producer or director of 7.
Oh, is that not Nojima? Maybe I'm getting their names mixed up.
No, it isn't.
All right.
Taking a sidestep here.
All right, you're going to look up who's directing? FF7 Remake. See, you're not going to get it through any of that stuff. Don't worry about it.
Kitase was the original.
Kitase, that's who I was thinking of. Sorry. Kitase is also involved as a producer, and I guess he's a stronger producer on this one than I previously thought. I was concerned that Kitase wasn't directing because I wanted him to direct, remember?
Yeah, but then we found out that a lot of the big stuff in 7 was Nomura's idea.
Yeah.
So
surprisingly.
Yeah. But yeah, whatever.
All right. I think, I don't know, mixed bag with the legacy of 14. I think it all depends on the future.
Yeah, and I think the future is bright. I believe it is anyway.
Okay.
I think so.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Well, we'll find out eventually, won't we?
We will. All right. Well, let's get to some questions.
All right, so we asked for some questions for the Final Fantasy XIV review episode, and that's right now. Let's get into some of these. Yeah. We only had a few submissions this time, which is, it's okay given the turbulent playthrough of 14 and all the crap we've been working on lately. So let's dive into these. The first one is from Shinru, and you can all guess how this one's going to go. How is the final dungeon? Was it hard? How does it compare to the final dungeon in 11 or the rest of the FF series final dungeons? Okay,
so the final dungeon was, of course, the Garlean Delia, right?
Castrum Meridianum.
Castor, I couldn't remember the name of it. Castrum Meridianum. What, okay, first off, Emily, what did you think of the, before you drop out on us again, what did you think of the Castrum Meridianum?
I remember it being awesome just because I think we were all in like one big group through the dungeon. The first time I played it on a different server with other people, I got lost and they didn't care about me because I was a DPS. But going through it with like actual people I knew and they kind of cared about me, I think, quote unquote, I think it was really fun. And it wasn't necessarily hard. It was just kind of like time consuming and long. And I thought it was cool that we got to ride the Magitech armor and shoot cannons at people. So
yeah. And Bill, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I went through it, I wanted to watch the cutscenes, and that doesn't work. You can't actually play it and watch the cutscenes on a just a pickup group from Duty Finder. So I didn't actually even get to fully experience it until the time all four of us, well, the whole 8 of us went through. And yeah, I really liked it. Going down in that Magitech armor is still like one of the highlights, I think, of the whole game.
I completely agree with everything that's been said. I thought it was a great final dungeon.
All right. Yeah, I think it was a lot of fun. It was a cool multi-tiered fight. There was a bunch of different bosses, which is a big thing for Final Fantasy. The final area has to have boss fight after boss fight after boss fight, and this one definitely delivered on that. Yep. The Magitech armor was a great callback. It was awesome blasting caps and these fools down there, and that was really cool. The music I thought was solid, and just I don't know, it was a lot of fun. I agree, it wasn't very difficult, and it is stressful because I'm trying to experience the story, and I got locked out a bunch of times myself because I was in a party where I didn't know either of the white mages or the tanks.
User in your channel timed out.
And there she goes.
When that happens, you don't get to watch any cutscenes. They have all the control, and most people are doing a daily dungeon roulette thing or whatever it may be, and they just want to burn through it and not watch the story. But I don't know. When we went through it with you, it was good. I enjoyed it. I think it's more. I liked it more than the final dungeon in 11 a little bit, but the final dungeon in 11 was also really good. So that's a tough one to pit it
Final
against.
Dungeon 11 was pretty darn good. But, the style of play is so different between 11 and 14 that it's hard to compare the two, despite them both being MMOs.
It is, yeah. I think 14 is a more enjoyable game, so I think the dungeon was more enjoyable at the end than 11's.
And Shinra's next question is about the final boss. I mean, was it the hardest boss in the game? I don't think so. I think there are some other bosses and some other dungeons that, for me, were more challenging, kind of the way you had to deal with them. I don't know, Bill, what'd you think of the final boss?
That was easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have any...
It was, no.
I didn't have any troubles with it, really. I mean, there's just so many people that are there that it's not even something I have to partake in, necessarily. Like, they beat it without me, essentially,
exactly.
The first time I played, so... I'd say it's much easier than 11's final fight. That was ridiculous.
And what about the music in the final dungeon? Was it any different from the other battle music that we heard throughout the game? I honestly can't remember.
Yeah, I can't recall it either, as much as I like the music. I can't.
Yeah, can't recall if there was a difference between in the Garlean stuff, if it was different than what we'd previously had. So those were the other Shinru questions.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I like the music in 11's dungeons more. I actually really like the battle music in 11 too. Mm-hmm. Like when I went back and did that quest for the 11 items, I feel like that one was enjoyable. Yeah, I got it, fucker. I'm scrolling, okay? Chill.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get to the next.
Yeah, I'm talking here.
Look, Chocobo Chica's question.
Yeah,
right.
I could see Chocobo Chica's question.
Okay, you sure?
Yeah.
All right, because I couldn't
fucking
see it.
Yeah, well, I wasn't talking about it yet. So.
All right.
Now, boys.
All right. Now, Chocobo Chica's question. I've heard you guys mention several times that both 11 and 14 could be played through solo. As someone who isn't really a fan of MMOs anymore, would you recommend playing 14 solo, if only to experience the story? If so, do you think that would make the experience better or worse? And being out of the MMO scene for a while, do you think the game's mechanics would be difficult to pick up?
Well, I'll start this one off. I think if you truly care about Final Fantasy, you should probably play through 14. It definitely has a place, and it's a very soloable game. I mean, a lot of the complaints that Bainjram, I know he was really voicing, was there's so much stuff that I do by myself in this game that it's not even really an MMO. It's just got MMO elements occasionally. Is one of the things he would always complain about, and I think he's kind of right. There's a lot of spots where I don't need anybody else. I can just jump into a duty finder.
It almost is a single player game.
Yeah, it's really, really close. It's a very disconnected kind of MMO experience for a good chunk of it. I mean, obviously the dungeons are very much MMO, but even then, you don't actually have to do anything other than join a duty finder. You have to just try to find a group of people to play with, and then you play with the group. But even then, it's not quite the same experience as 11, where every little thing you have to have a group of people or you're going to get rocked. And I think playing it solo, I think it wouldn't really change the experience much. It might drop it a little bit just because it gets really lonely just chilling in this game where there are other people.
It's a long game.
It is, and there's a lot of other people around, but if you're not communicating with any of them, it's just kind of, I don't know, it's almost disconnected in a way. And I think, as far as the last part of your question, being out of the MMO scene for a while, this game has very easy mechanics, and you'll be able to pick it up pretty quickly. I mean, there's obviously
it holds your hand through a lot of it. So
yeah, the first big chunk of it, you'll be good at whatever you're doing by the time you get to the parts that get tough. And if not, you'll have somebody in the party that'll know exactly what to do, kind of a thing. So
yeah, as far as playing 11 solo is concerned, yes, you can have you can have your other guys that are summoned with you. However, you would want to be over leveled in 11, and you don't necessarily need to do that in 14.
Yeah, you'll actually get level synced.
Yeah.
If you're too high, it'll bring you down to a certain level for that story quest.
Yeah, playing either of those solo, 11 would be way harder to play solo.
Well, you have the trust too, though.
Well, I'm talking about the trust, but like even then, with the trust, if you were playing it solo, legitimately solo, you would have to have your trusts out. And for some of the bosses, you would have to be over leveled in order to compensate for missing, 3 other slots that can't be filled up.
Yeah, true. You'd have to be quite over leveled actually,
but
to make up for it.
But with 14, you get into a dungeon, you have to wait for people to fill up the slots that are needed in order for you guys to form a party and go on. And you don't necessarily need to know the people in the game in order to do that. So yeah, you can pretty much play it by yourself. Bill, do you concur?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any friends for the first few months playing this game, so I did it all by myself.
Well, there you go. The next question is from Gabranth on the forums.
Was moved to your channel.
Hey,
We're back in.
Welcome back. The next question is, what was your favorite dungeon / boss battle? Which was the toughest or most hated? Let's have
Emily start, since you might lose her again.
Favorite dungeon and boss battle / toughest or most hated?
My favorite one was definitely the Garuda fight. I think it had the most energy, and there's a whole bunch of stuff you had to do. My least favorite, even though it was cool in itself, was probably Titan, just because I always fell off. I don't know why. I just always was just a little bit not far enough, and I just get hit and fall, and it was really frustrating. And then the hard mode and the extreme, they're even harder, so I'm not excited to do those more.
All right.
Bill?
I think, I'd agree. Garuda was for 2.0, Garuda was, for primals, was the hardest one. I still think the normal mode Garuda is harder than hard mode Garuda, just because you only have 4 people for normal mode. And dungeons, my favorite was, I already said, Orem Vale, the one with the poison stacks.
Yeah. Let me see. My favorite boss battle, I'm going to agree, Garuda was an incredible fight. I mean, it was a lot of energy, like Emily said. The music is perfect for it. There's good mechanics that you actually have to move around.
I'll concur, by the way.
A bit of strategy to that. And as far as my favorite dungeon goes, I really liked the manor. I thought that one was a lot of fun.
Oh, the manor is pretty darn cool.
It's got a cool, organ going on in the background. It's kind of
Yeah.
Halloween-y. And then the funny part is it was right around Halloween when I played that mission. So I was like, oh, this is really cool. It's super, it fits the time of year that I happen to be playing 14. And I thought that one was a lot of fun. And it's got an interesting mechanic where you have to like return in the dungeon. You have to use the spell return to go back to the beginning part. And I thought that one was pretty good. Now the one that the toughest one for me thus far, I'm gonna have to say Mog when we were with you guys.
Mog's 2.
Oh, you're right. Shit. Never mind. Not Mog. Don't worry about Mog. Toughest dungeon. I'm going to have to go with Bill's favorite. That fucking poison one where when you get
Aurum Vale?
Yeah, Aurum Vale is... Yeah, that was tough,
Is that
man.
the poisonous dragon guy?
No.
No, that's Brayflox.
Oh, okay.
This is one of the ones that we did when you were offline.
Okay.
It's from 1.0. It's like one of the old dungeons that you unlock later.
I don't even think it's part of the main story.
It's not. You don't have to play it. It's a pain in the ass though. Like the stuff in there does a lot of damage. There's a lot of different elements. I enjoyed it still, even though I hate it at the same time. But it was tough. Yeah. And most hated. I don't know. I don't really hate any of the dungeons thus far. I haven't done any of the hard mode or extreme or anything, but I think thus far they've all been pretty good. I mean, there are some that I don't like getting, like the first 2 or 3. They're really boring to go through. If I pull those up in my daily roulette, I'm kind of disappointed. Like, oh, here we go. I'm going to not get any XP up until the boss fight, and then it's just uneventful. It's just kind of a go here, kill this, go here, kill that. And those are usually my least favorite. I kind of like the ones that there's a little bit of variety to it. Like, oh, somebody might mess up here, or, I got to do this to kill the boss sort of thing.
Like Copper Bell.
Yeah, Copper Bell. That one's fun, yeah. So, all right. Who's, let's see, what's you guys' favorite NPC?
Sid, Menphilia, Thancred, etc. I got to go with Sid on that one. I think Sid is the best NPC in the game.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. I will say I'm going to have to go Menphilia.
Oh, why is that?
She's hot. No, she's pretty cool, and
okay.
Oh, she gives me a lot of experience.
Emily, who's your favorite NPC?
I really liked Papa Limo. I think he's silly. I guess I like silly characters.
Oh, Ida.
But Ida's pretty funny too. I like after 2.0, I think you get to know the NPCs way more.
Agreed.
So you'll probably have different answers later. So I'm excited to have you guys go through the rest.
All right.
Yeah, I concur with that actually too. I do enjoy the interactions between Ida and Papa Limo. They're actually really funny, but those are like a group of NPCs. What about you, Bill? What's your top NPC in 2.0?
In 2.0, yeah, I mean, I'd have to say Sid, but I can't remember exactly when everything happens, but I really like the relationship with Nanamo and Relbon.
Yeah.
That was I really like those characters. I don't know, either one of them probably would be one of my favorites.
All right.
Our next question here comes from Gammon Stark. What do you see from 14 that you would like to see in 15? Emily, you got any ideas for this?
I think they're kind of very different games, so it's hard to translate back and forth from what I've seen of 15. And I don't have a PS4, so I can't play the demo or anything. But I hope they use common characters, the Mogs and stuff, just to keep that Final Fantasy theme alive.
Okay, so use what they've used, the recipe for success kind of throughout the entirety of the series. All right. Jesus, this is tough. I don't know. As far as, I don't think they're really going to keep much from 14 to 15, to be honest.
I don't think so either.
15 is so much faster of a game. There's not going to be the, 3 seconds to cast Protect or the 4 seconds to cast Flare. It's going to be Flare. It's going to be Protect. It's going to be, everything's just super quick. one thing I would like to have is, I hope to God they do this for some of them, in 15 with the summon that we got, when we got Ramu, you just walk up into go into the cave and you just get him. Mm-hmm. I kind of want him to have a sort of primal like fight, and then you get the summon.
I would like that.
Similar to 10.
Yeah, similar to 10 or 12, where you fight it and then it becomes yours. And I think that's one thing that I would like to see from 14 to 15 is the primal fights to get the primal or summon or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. What about you, Bill? Is there anything that you think could translate over or that you would want to?
Yes, I've never been a big fan of that Kingdom Hearts or the Final Fantasy XV style like fighting with the menu off to the side where you got to press up and down while you're moving your character around to select. I'd never really figured it out. I'd really like it if they had the cooldown and the controller layout similar to 14, although with much less actions. I think that would be a pretty good recipe for battle. Maybe not 15, but maybe 16 or anything like that.
16
then if you could,
or beyond.
Because if you could change characters while your cooldowns are going around, it would get really complicated. But you could bring it back to that fast-paced, turn-based kind of thing. I don't know, it's just a thought.
Yeah, that's a solid idea. That'd be really cool, actually, if it almost like combined 10 and 12 almost, or 12 and 14, where you start casting something with the one character, then you switch over to somebody else and then like do something like that. It almost makes it like a 10 style system where you've got to plan out your turns before they go. You got to like throw these things down. I doubt it'll happen, but that'd be awesome. What about you, Joe? What's something you think it can take or you'd want it to take?
Knowing how large, or at least we think we know how large 15 is going to be as far as its landscape is concerned,
I know the
teleportability would be useful.
Okay, well, we know...
That's what I'm saying.
Well, we know with 15 there's going to be the auto drive function, kind of like an 8 where you had the plane, but you just want it to be instant. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Even if it does cost money.
Yeah, dude, I did not know that was an 8 until this time I played it. I had no idea that you could press like select and choose the area and it'll auto fly you to it. No idea.
That's too bad.
9 taught me that, actually, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can do that in 9.
Yeah.
All right, so our last question here, I believe, is from Krinital. As you have played through both, by the way, Krinital, come with us on January 2nd. It's an open invitation to join us. As you have played through both 11 and 14, what are some bonuses and what are some faults comparing the two? So this is a question for me and you, Caleb.
Yes, very much so. Some bonuses and some faults.
So in other words, what are the pros and cons of versing each other, basically? What are some things in 11 that are better than 14 and vice versa?
That's kind of tough. I think most things are better in 14. The one thing I like a little more in 11 is you can grind on monsters. That's one thing sometimes that could be easier in 14 that really doesn't exist. Like we get the XP boost with eating food, and I do that every single time I get the chance. But even then, like if I'm not doing a special quest, I can kill all the things I want, but I'm only gonna get a couple hundred XP at a time, and it kind of takes away the killing grinding aspect, which. It's all a grind at the end of the day, but sometimes I kind of want the option to do what I did in 11 and just say, all right, I know where a good level 20 spot is. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to level this class up 4 or 5 levels, and then I'll move on to the 25 area, kill everything in sight, and level that up, and move on. That's one thing I think 14 could do a little bit better, and... Other than that, I don't know, man. I think 14 is just so much better in most ways. I think the one nice thing about 11, too, before we move on, is that I think 14 could benefit from a little bit is 11 was so much more difficult, and it was kind of more rewarding when you did something, when you got something figured out, when you finally got that, level 90 or level 95 unlocked. Like, it was a big deal. And with 14, it's almost I don't know, it's almost like a handout MMO. And I know Baindrum's always talking about this too, and I can see it, where 14 is just so easy. Everything is so immediate. There's no work involved necessarily. And I don't know.
That kind of changes off story mode, though.
Yeah, that's true. There are the hard mode and the extra dungeons and things like that, but that was all of 11. All of the hard mode shit. All of
11
that tough
is
stuff.
hard mode.
11 is
Yeah,
hard mode.
and that it's a pain in the ass, but it is rewarding at the end of the day. You actually feel like, yeah, I did some pretty solid work today, leveling up like 7 times. That's ridiculous in Final Fantasy XI, and in 14, that's early on, that's nothing. So I don't know. What about you, Joe?
Well, I do got to say there is some charm to 11, and the charm is mostly within the social aspect of it. It's forced, like we said about Chocobo Chica's question. I mean, unless you want to really grind and get yourself above where you need to be in order to fight things in like the missions or any of the stories in 11, you really need people.
Yeah,
to play with.
You're forced to party up.
The best way to do that, of course, is going on TeamSpeak or something like that, and so that you're talking to other people, and you kind of get strategies figured out. Like, hey, where are you? Oh, I'm getting to the book right now. Like, there's a charm to it, and there's a fun sort of social aspect to 11 that I think because of the way 14 is set up, it doesn't necessarily push you to do that like it does with 11.
Yeah.
And that is the one big difference between the two games. While playing just 2.0, I realize there's more game past this, of course.
Yeah.
But that is the number one difference, I think, to me, is the social aspect of 11 and 14.
Yeah, that's a good point. 11
Otherwise, yeah, 14 is a better game.
Oh, yeah. But 11 is more of an MMO, I'd say.
But when we were like midway through 14, I started to miss 11.
Yeah?
Just because of the interaction.
I think you're sick.
Sadistic.
I haven't missed it, but
I have missed 11. There's something about it, man.
that is true, though. I mean, you bring up a good point. We can all be on TeamSpeak for 3+ hours, or not TeamSpeak, PlayStation Chat, in a room together for 3.5 hours one night, and maybe not even run into each other.
Yep, never play the game with each other.
Yeah, like I'm just doing my thing, Joe's doing his thing. I'm like, hey, where are you?
But there is something funny about,
What's your playtime at? The same shit that I always ask, and I might not even run into the guy. But when we get on 11, we're there.
There's a plan. We have to okay, now you
we need to get through
draw
this
way. Oh,
yeah.
no, you're walking too no.
Yeah, well, you got to make sure to
And
not
there's the
pull.
aggro. And, it's crazy.
It's fucked up. And then we got to kill shit fast enough that like it doesn't respawn kind of shit, and then we got to position ourselves in the room to where if it does respawn, it won't pull to us so that we don't get rocked.
All right, guys, ignore the drop. I need this piece of item. I need this item.
Yeah, that shit's like it's nuts.
All that shit is missing from 14.
It's
just
true.
That kind of like a funny aspect of 11, I guess, is just dealing with shit that 11 throws out.
That's true.
So that's the number one thing I think I'm missing. So
all right, fair enough. That's
so. Let's get to overall what we think about the game, shall we?
maybe we shall.
All right, so before we talk about our overall kind of view of the game, Emily, tell us about your Final Fantasy history and how you got to 14.
Well, my brother has been playing Final Fantasy. He's a few years older than me. I'm kind of younger. I'm like 22. So my brother played a lot, and I just kind of got into it as my brother kind of got into it, because that's kind of what you do when your brother's 3 years older than you.
Sure.
And my first real, me playing Final Fantasy was Final Fantasy IX, and then I kind of went back and played, 7 and 8 and kind of on, but I haven't really played earlier games before, 6. I haven't really done any of that. So I've been playing mainly later games.
All right.
And what brought you to 14?
some of my college friends played 14, and they were like, you should play, you like Final Fantasy. And it was during the summer, like 2 years ago, so I just did it because I didn't have anything else better to do. So, and I really liked it, and then I kind of stopped playing it because my computer died and I couldn't afford it anymore. And then when I found your podcast, you guys were playing it, or going to start to play it, I should say, and I was like, hey, I have a new computer, I might as well play it again. And it was a good idea, and I have had a lot of fun with it.
Okay.
Oh, we're glad.
So overall, what do you think about Final Fantasy XIV and its place in the series, Emily?
Like my list of games, I guess?
No. We'll get to the list.
it, yeah.
Okay, we'll wait on the list.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good game. I've really enjoyed it. It's one of my more favorite ones, and maybe it's because of, like, I haven't played as many, like, of the earlier ones, but I haven't heard really great things about those, so I feel really good about this game, and I keep going back to it and have put way too many hours into it, so I think that just is a testament of how much I like it, that I'm willing to, play the game instead of, do homework or hang out with real people.
All right. Fair enough. Bill, what Final Fantasies have you played? What got you to 14?
Well, I started on my PS1 I just rented FF9 every week and played that a whole lot because my friend was playing Final Fantasy X at the time and I didn't have a PS2, so I was like, what the hell is this? So I went back and played 9, got a PS2 for Christmas, and got the FF10, and from there I went backwards, and I got all the PS1, the 1 and 2 and 4, and Chrono Trigger, and 6, and I played those a lot, and then, I don't know, I just kind of been going around from those, and like other JRPGs, Earthbound, and Legend of Dragoon, and then I tried FF13 when it came out. I didn't finish it back then. And then, I think just your guys' excitement with FF11 is kind of when I was like, well, maybe I'll go and play 14. So that kind of inspired me to go start this game, and
all right.
quite enjoy it. And I stuck with it for 5-6 months now. I'm very slow, so I've been playing Fallout and other games. But yeah, I'll keep it in my rotation of games for quite a while, I think.
All right.
So do you find it to be a good experience for you?
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
Yeah. I love it more now that we have the free company too. Now that like there's other people to play with. Like, because before I was running around like, I don't know, just alone, and it kind of sucked.
Chicken with your head cut off kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just doing whatever.
Exactly. And I'm not like so hardcore that I could like get in with a very solid group. So
thank you, Krenatol, for setting all that stuff up for
exactly.
us.
Yeah, thank you, Krenatol. Maybe we should plug for anybody who's listened to this episode and wants to join. It's Friends of UFF.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
FOUFF. I don't know. It's just Friends of UFF. Is that how you search for it?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
All right.
it should be fine.
Yeah, or find us on the Brynhilder server. Schweiss, overall thoughts on the game. We all know what Final Fantasies we've played before.
Yeah, so I started with 7. Back when it's I don't know. I think it has a place in the whole scheme of things. I think it really has a place because of 11, because they got into the MMO scene before, and then they were like, you know what? I think we still have enough swag in our step, enough swagger to create another MMO experience that's enjoyable. And then they didn't, and then they did. So I think 2.0 has its place in the series. I don't know if it necessarily advances the series like other games. This is the big reason why I switched my ranking for 8 and 4, is because I look at 8 and I see a stagnant game that, thank God, they didn't take a lot from for the next entry. And 14 is kind of that way, but it's pretty solid, and it's a different kind of game. And I feel like if they do another MMO, they're just going to build on everything they've done with this one. And I think it has a good place in the series. I mean, it's obviously I don't enjoy it as much as some of the other games because it's a totally different game. But I don't know. I think it's definitely a step up from 11, and it's kind of fun to see them adapt to the current market or to the current player base of MMOs, and just see, okay, well, we did this last time and we can't do it again. Let's switch it up here. And then I don't know. I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it quite a bit thus far. I mean, I've been willing to go back and work on other classes while waiting for story missions to be caught up on from Joe, and I'm willing to go through, and if anyone needs to run a dungeon, I'll run it with them, kind of a thing. Like, it's a lot of fun, and I think I really grasp the multiplayer experience, especially like with those dungeons. I'm totally willing to jump in, drop whatever I'm doing to go help somebody out, give them another DPS, even though, yeah, there's a million of us and they don't need me necessarily, but it creates a better experience if, I'm in there and we're, trashing on the other people or doing crazy shit in the dungeons or whatever it may be. And I don't know, I think that definitely cements its place in the series, and I think it's a worthwhile game, worth playing.
All right. Well, for me, I think at its best, you're fighting a tough boss battle and you're screaming at each other to do, certain things in order to survive.
Yeah.
That's where 14 is at its best, is in the multiplayer. And unfortunately, it has, at least through the story of 2.0, it does not have that many opportunities for that instilled within the story. However, at its worst, it is you setting up tables for some guy.
Yeah.
Or doing a small talking quest that really means nothing to the overall story of the game, but yet you have to do it in order to move on. I think it is a game with very solid gameplay mechanics, and it has its fun moments, although it does feel a little bit grindy for me. But of course, we've gone in depth about that. I think overall it's a pretty middle ground Final Fantasy game, and for an MMO, I don't know. There's some parts of 11 I still like the multiplayer aspect more of 11, but yet this is a much more solid game than that. However, in comparison to games like 7, 6, 10, even 12 or 9, like, does it really fit into any of those?
Yeah. I
don't know. I'm kind of lukewarm on this one, I'll be honest, on Final Fantasy 14. Yeah. I'm excited to play Heavensward, though, and I'm excited to get into more of the gaming aspects of the game. But unfortunately, I haven't really experienced too much of that. So
fair enough.
Yeah. So let's get into our rankings.
Yeah, the best part of the show.
All right. Do you guys have rankings set up as it is right now?
Me? I mean, no, I could write them down.
Okay.
What about Emily?
Emily, you got rankings up?
I got of the rankings of what games I've played.
Okay. All right. So we'll talk about our previous rankings first and give you guys like 2 minutes to solidify where you're going to put 14 in your rankings. Okay?
Oh, sorry, what was that?
Get your ranking together. We're going to talk about ours.
Okay. So, Schweiss, you did a little messing around last time when you did your rankings, I would like to say. You originally had 8 above 4, but when you were looking at 13 and its place in the series, you decided to move 8 down and put 13 in between 4.
And the reason for that was because I can't accept 13 being better than 4, but I could accept it being better than 8. And I was like, because of that, I should probably have 4 above 8 because of 13.
Now, some people may say that perhaps the Eyes of Time should not have any part of this ranking.
That's what Void thinks.
That's what Void thinks, and now that I've been thinking about it, I think you might be a little right. As in, like, that's how you felt when you played 8, that it was better than 4.
Yeah.
So why now switch it up just based upon your own retrospective?
Well, the one of the problems with that, though, is you have all this hype leading up to 4. 4 is this highly regarded game. It's like hailed as one of the greatest games ever, and then it isn't. That's a big downfall. Now, I know 8.
No.
I know 8 sucks. I've known 8 kind of sucks ever since I played the fucker the first time.
We weren't disappointed in 4. I think you should listen to the 4 episode again.
I wasn't disappointed in it necessarily, but compared to what it was lived up to, I kind of was. The ending was very disappointing. Now, yeah, it was better than 3, 2, and 1, but that's easy. Most games are better than Final Fantasy 3, 2, and 1. Most games I played, anyway. I won't say most games. There's a lot of shitty games out there, but
That's Xanadu.
Yeah, and I don't know. I enjoyed it, but I think we should be able to change it.
All right,
And
well, you
the-
did, so that's not the question.
I think that is part of the reasoning. Is you hear
Okay.
so many good things about something, and then you go into it and you're almost let down, and that's impossible unless it's a brand new game.
But
to
then
not have.
why did you decide to move 8 below?
8 below 13 or 4?
Yeah.
Because 8 doesn't have a place it doesn't advance the series at all.
Okay.
9 wasn't based on 8. 9 was based more on 7, I think.
See, I refuse to let my rankings allow for how influential the game was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that should be a part of it. But
Yeah.
oh well, it is your list.
No, I think
It
that
is your
too.
list.
Plus, I think 8's not a very good game, so
Okay.
suck on that, you fuck.
All right. So you have at number 1 Final Fantasy VII, and then 6, 10, 12, 9, 5, 4, 13, 8, 11, 2, 3, and 1.
Correct.
And I have number 6, 10, 7, 9, 5, 12, 13, 8, 4, 11, 2, 3, and 1.
All right.
Okay. Now let's listen to our guest list here. Emily, are you ready with your list of the games that you've played?
Is this with 14 or without 14?
Without for now.
Without 14.
I am ready.
Okay. List it off.
From top to bottom?
Yep.
So my number 1 is 9, and then 10, 7, 6, 13, 8.
Okay. And Bill, you got yours?
Yeah, I'm ranking them in order of how much I enjoyed them, I
Right.
suppose. So 10 being my top one, and then 9, and then 6, and then 1, 4, and 2.
Okay.
And you haven't played 7.
Nah, sorry. I
man.
just
missing out.
bought it. I just bought it yesterday, and I'm gonna have it beat before January 5th.
Ooh, okay. All right. That's
Good God. All right.
Okay. All right, Emily. Now you got 9, 10, 7, 6, 13, and 8. Where are you going to put 14 in all of this Final Fantasy that you've played?
It's between 7 and 6.
7 and 6? Okay. So what makes it better than 6, 13, and 8 and not as good as 7, 10, or 9?
I don't know. I think it's just more enjoyable to me. I just do it based on how I was feeling at the time. I only played through 13, 8, and 6 once, and besides 13, it was quite a bit, like a long time ago, so it could change if I play them again after playing other games. But it's just from pure enjoyment of when I did it originally.
All right.
Okay. And Bill, do you know where you're going to put 14?
I put it number 4 right underneath number 6 and above number 1.
Okay. So same question applies to you. What makes it not as good as 10, 9, and 6, but yet better than 1, 4, and 2? Actually,
Well-
I know the answer to the second part.
Actually, it's really just based off my excitement to play it. Like 10, 9, and 6, I have clear memories of racing home from school to just can't wait to get to there to play it. And then 14 is similar. Like I'll just be at work all day thinking about it and have to race home and want to play it. It's not as good as 10, 9, and 6. That's why it's below them. 1, 4, and 2. I enjoyed them, but they're just not as exciting for me.
Okay.
I agree.
All right, Caleb.
And you're going to make me go first?
Yeah, because you've gone last, for the last 3 review episodes. So yeah, it's your turn to go first. So,
Well,
Where are you going to place 14? Now we're getting to the end of the main series here. We might not do rankings in the future. So this is your official full main series ranking order.
man, this is scary.
Okay?
Dun, dun, dun.
Man, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. But
Okay. Where are you putting it, Caleb?
I'm going to put it at the top.
Number 1.
No, I'm just fucking with you. I'm not going to put it at the top.
You guys, I was going to get so pissed. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm sure there are people out there
probably-
who love the game like that.
There's probably plenty of
But
people.
considering how we've talked about the game, I'm like, what are you talking about? I thought he was serious. Okay, go ahead, Schweiss.
Well, I think for me, oh fuck, this is tough. It's always tough to rank these things. Well, okay, number 1 was really easy to rank, but shit. Oh, man. I think I'm gonna have to put it in between 4 and 13.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's lower than I thought you were going to rank it.
Yeah,
You
well,
like 4 more than it.
I think so. Yeah.
See, look, it's the eyes of time. He's allowing himself to be manipulated. All right. So your official ranking, just for myself so that I could go back and listen to this episode and know what our ranking was.
Yep.
Let me reiterate. Your
7,
official ranking now.
7, 6, 10, 12, 9, 5, 4, 14, 13, 8, 11, 2, 3, and 1.
What makes 14 better than 13 but not as good as 4?
Well, I don't know. It's a fun game, but I feel like the fact that it's an MMO and it doesn't have that many MMO aspects makes it very single-playered. And now, while the MMO elements of 14 are fantastic, they're amazing, they're a lot of fun, it's a great time, there is so many hours I poured into this thing where I'm just doing lev quests to bring classes up that, yeah, I don't necessarily have to do, but that's how I got to do it. You know, I got to do all these little things. There's a lot of stuff that I can do solo, and that kind of defeats the MMO experience. Plus, I think the story in 4 is better. I think the story in 13, maybe not better, but even the story in 8, I'd say, is better than 14's. But the gameplay, the amount of fun I've had playing it, bumps it up a couple slots, but not as solid as 4. I think 4 it's a pretty well-rounded game. Sure, the ending, obviously, as everyone's heard a million times, shits me off beyond comprehension almost, but I feel like it was a lot more, it had a balance to it, except for the moon part. It's just more of a Final Fantasy game to me, and it's more of what I want to play than 14.
Okay.
With just 2.0, just the bare bones, the beginning section of the
14
game.
as a standalone.
14 as a standalone game, yes.
Okay.
What about you, Joe? What's the verdict?
I'm struggling here, but I know where I'm going to put it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's tough because it's fun. That's the tough part, is it is fun.
It has its moments, as do I say every single Final Fantasy game, including FF1 has its moments. Now, if the story was a little bit more involved, this might be a different story. Okay. So I'm going to place it under 4.
Okay.
But above 11. So it's pretty low on my list of my rankings of Final Fantasy games. And Bill, you said it earlier when you were like, it was your excitement factor, like your excitement to get home and play a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
14 for me felt, especially during the level 40s area, it felt like a serious chore having to go on and play the game. And in some ways I felt that way for 11, but I didn't in some ways for 11. Like I was like, oh, I'm going to go hang out and play 11. And with 14, it was super chory, especially in that area. Now it has these very high peaks and its gameplay is much better than 11's. That makes it better than 11. But at the same time, more excited to play 4 than I was to play 14.
Yeah, that's something I didn't bring up in my section. I agree with that. I mean, we have to play it. Okay, we've scheduled out certain days out of the week to play it. And those days, recently, I've kind of felt like, I'm like, oh man, my work day isn't over when I leave work. It's over when I go to bed after I finish playing 14. It's fun.
And
but,
some people would fault us for looking at it that way because we schedule it like that.
yeah, but that's part of the gameplay. Regardless of how we would schedule it, we'd have to do it that way. We'd have to come back and, play a certain amount for certain amount of time.
everything is sort of based off of like your place in life when you get to play any of these games.
That's true.
That does affect it for sure, yeah.
That's true.
But I didn't feel as much excitement for a good chunk of it. Now, when I got to a dungeon, I was pumped.
A new one. A new dungeon.
Yeah, a new dungeon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go home and I'm going to finish 2.0. That was super exciting. Mm-hmm. But,
So my official ranking is now 6, 10, 7, 9, 5, 12, 13, 8, 4, 14, 11, 2, 3, and 1. Not that 14's a bad game. Not that any of these are really bad games, except I really hate 1. But
I love 1.
yeah, I know some people love 1. I find it to be an extreme bore. It's I don't know, it's lower middle ground Final Fantasy.
Yeah. It's a different experience.
But you know what? It has had a rebirth, and I'm sure it is far better than its original.
No, I agree, and that's what makes it tough. Is like we're ranking it against an amazing series. It's still a good game, even though it's the bottom half of this amazing series. That's still a good chunk, to us. But I don't know. It didn't have quite as many awesome elements as some of the other games. I mean, I don't know. We'll
see how we feel about it in the future when we come back for expansions and stuff like that. Now, we are going through the first update expansions, so up to 2.55 in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
So, by the way, we are still playing Final Fantasy XIV as you're listening to this. We are still, I guess we're almost done with 14, but you can still hop on if you want on the Brynhilde server and talk to us or whatever and join
the free company.
Join our free company, exactly. Friends of UFF. And I do want to thank Bill and Emily. Thank you guys for coming on to the show. I know it was kind of last minute, but we really appreciate it. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
And for guys who are on our last episode, of course, Baindrum and Anthony,
right?
Really appreciate you guys coming on too. Wow, that was a rough ranking. I gotta tell you,
it was hard. I mean, because it is a fun game, but I don't know. There's a lot of parts that are not quite as fun. So you're right about the peaks. It's like I don't know. It's like a really high peak, and then you just drop down this giant chasm of boredom of fetch quest bullshit.
I had the same issue. I had the same issue with 8, and there's a reason why I put it above 4 was because its peaks were so much higher than 4's peaks.
Yeah.
So
it really depends. That's interesting to think of. Like it's almost like when I'm trying to rank
it's averaging it in your mind.
Yeah, averaging it, like a Megadeth CD, for example.
Okay, all right.
We love talking
Let's
about
talk about Megadeth for a little bit.
There,
I could talk about Megadeth.
Yeah, there may be a CD. We have Cryptic Writings where there are 3 really, really good Megadeth songs on it. Like Trust is one of the most successful, if not the most successful Megadeth song. So it is commercially their best song. Now, it is not their best album. It's probably middle ground at best because the rest of the CD sucks. So that's where it's a bitch to put these into perspective because, like the Garuda fight may be one of the best fights in the series, but the placing the fucking wine and cheese on the table is probably
doing the dance,
the most
psyching everyone up.
Psyching everyone up is probably the most boring fucking thing I've ever had to do in a video game.
Could you go find this guy in a forest? That's it's somewhere in this circle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello. It's tough. Yeah. It's tough to rank.
It's tough to play it. I still find it a very enjoyable game. Sometimes.
When it's good,
and sometimes
great.
Not. Yeah, exactly.
And it's different I think it's different for me too because I am trying to do as much of the game as I possibly can, so I don't mind doing the extra grinding stuff, so it doesn't feel quite the same for me because I'm like, well, I mean, I have a Final Fantasy podcast. I want to have all the trophies ever for Final Fantasy, and I kind of set myself to that. But even then, even with that being said, it does get old after a while.
Yeah. So we're going to get some second opinions next week. So be tuned for that. Otherwise, guys,
Be tuned.
enjoy the grind.
Enjoy the grind.
This has been another production of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast. The show was produced by Joseph DeGollier and Caleb Schweiss, with music and editing by Joseph DeGollier, parodies and clips from their respective authors, of course. You can get all of our episodes as well as our Let's Plays at ultimafinalfantasy.com. You can also contact us on Twitter at UFF Podcast, as well as our contact page on our website. Be sure to subscribe and review our podcast. Your reviews may get read on the show, and look forward to the next episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast.